Good afternoon. The Senate Committee on Regulatory Reform is called to order. Clerk will please call the roll.
Chairman Rocca.
Here.
Senator Jones.
Here.
Senator Nolenberg. Senator Kowal. Here. Senator MacGregor. Here. Senator Hune. Senator Warren. Here. Senator Hertel. Here. Senator Kniezek. Mr. Chairman, there are 6 members present. There is a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I will move to adopt the minutes from the April 25th, 2018 meeting without objection, so ordered. And I will move to excuse absent members without objection, so ordered. First up, we have Senate Bill 969, Senator Jones, and we do have an S1 version. If you could speak to the S1, Senator Jones, that would be helpful.
Yes, the S1 version simply clarifies the language. It bans marijuana-infused alcohol. It changes that to marijuana-infused beer, wine, mixed wine drink, mixed spirit drink, or spirits. Brought to my attention by a number of organizations that this is happening in Colorado, and should the ballot proposal pass in November, we're going to certainly end up with it here. The problem is, a bartender, bar owner, they're required by law to observe people and make sure they stop before they're intoxicated. If you put marijuana, if you put THC in the beer, they will be consuming an edible, and it could take an hour for it to register with their body. So somebody could be getting high, they won't even know it. In addition, currently in Michigan law, we have zero tolerance. You can't drive with any THC in your system. You're not allowed. So if the bartender served you marijuana beer and you went out and got in your car and drove away, they could have a lot of liability. It's just a recipe for disaster. It's something we don't need in Michigan. So this is to make sure we preempt this product and we don't have it served in our bars.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Senator Jones? Seeing none, thank you. We do have 2 individuals wishing to testify. We have Eric Gunnels, representing himself, wishing to speak in opposition to the bill. Mr. Gunnels?
Thank you, honorable elected officials. My name is Eric Gunnels, and I am a Thetford Township trustee, and I'm also a candidate for the 48th District of House of Representatives. From my perspective, this is not a good use of legislative calendar. When, according to the Detroit Free Press, Colorado allows for marijuana-infused beer, but it is non-alcoholic. In Michigan, with those with the MMFLA license, cannot serve alcohol, and alcohol establishments cannot serve marijuana. And what about stifling an industry before it even has a chance to get off the ground? So I oppose this legislation. I don't think it's a good use of our time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Gunnels? Seeing none, thank you. Next up, we have Rick Thompson from MINORML of Michigan, wishing to speak in opposition to the bill. Welcome to Senate Reg Reform.
Thank you very much. I'd like to point out that in the substitute version that we have before us, it removes the term alcohol and then specifically articulates several different types of beverages. This would specifically make illegal the use of non-alcoholic beer with cannabis. And if the intention is to eliminate the combination of 2 intoxicating substances together, that really seems to sidestep that entire issue. I will say this seems a lot like a rhetorical legislative exercise because this bill would affect 0 people in Michigan. As Mr. Gunnels just said, liquor establishments are not allowed to retail anything with cannabis in it. And under the MMFLA, cannabis establishments are not allowed to retail liquor. So there's 0 market for this. I'll also point out that you cannot amend the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act through the vehicle that this bill has. Therefore, it wouldn't affect any of the 300,000 patients that are currently enrolled in the Michigan Medical Marijuana Program. The MMA, as a voter-directed initiative, supersedes this bill. So it wouldn't affect the medical patients whatsoever. So if there's no commercial market for this product, and there's not likely to be because it would require a change in law, and it doesn't affect the medical marijuana population, then what's the purpose of the bill? I'd also like to point out a couple of errors in language here, or perhaps potential corrections. You mentioned here, doesn't apply to a hospital that operates primarily for the purpose of conducting scientific research. Don't all hospitals operate primarily for health purposes, not for research? It seems like hospitals use research as a secondary purpose. Also, Senator Jones, you just mentioned the combination of THC with beverages as a negative, and I'm glad that you made the distinction, because here it just mentions cannabis and CBD, CBN, CBG. There are several other chemicals that compose cannabis that could successfully be combined with beer without any negative consequences whatsoever. And this bill seems like a broad strokes effort which inadvertently snags some very legitimate potential products in an industry that hasn't even gotten off its feet yet. I'd also like to point out that cannabis is almost identical structurally to hops. It's one of the plants that's used to simulate cannabis in scientific studies when cannabis is not available. So hops and cannabis are very easily interfused. So beer from cannabis would be very easy to produce. We have a craft beer industry in the state and a craft liquor industry in the state, which really are second to none. And we see a recent news article that says Ontario is given $300,000 to help a research institute develop cannabis-infused beer. That's happening right across the river in Ontario, just from the recent news. Plus, I also see that California has wine manufacturers that are infusing wine with cannabis at this time. Why would we create a situation where Michigan entrepreneurs are stifled in a way that their Canadian neighbors and that members of other states are not? So this seems like a bill that's a solution in search of a problem. And it perhaps doesn't necessarily seem like a proper use of the legislative calendar. That'll conclude my remarks.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from Mr.
Brief statement. Sure. Well, thank you for that information. I'm so happy that instead of becoming stoners in Michigan, they'll go to Canada or they'll go to California. Thank goodness.
Do we have any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have some cards to read in? Brett Visner, Michigan Beer and Wine Wholesalers Association, supporting Senate Bill 969 S1. Mike Tobias, Michigan Alcohol Policy, Prioritizing Health and Safety, not wishing to speak, sorry, supporting the bill. Supporting the bill as well, Dave Puck from the Michigan Licensed Beverage Association. And taking no position on the bill, Carrie Crone and Julie Wendt from the Michigan Liquor Control Commission. With that, I will move to adopt the S1 version of Senate Bill 969. Sorry, clerk will please call the roll.
Chairman Rocca.
Yes.
Senator Jones.
Yes.
Senator Nolenberg. Yes. Senator Kowal. Yes. Senator MacGregor. Yes. Senator Hune. Senator Warren. Yes. Senator Hertel. Yes. Senator Kniezek. Yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 8 yeas and 0 nays. The substitute is adopted.
Thank you. And I will move to report the S1 version of Senate Bill 969 to the Senate floor with recommendation that the bill then pass. Clerk will please call the roll.
Chairman Rocca.
Yes.
Senator Jones.
Yes.
Senator Nolenberg.
Yes.
Senator Kowal.
Yes.
Senator MacGregor.
Yes.
Senator Hune. Senator Warren.
Yes.
Senator Hertel.
Yes.
Senator Kniezek.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, there are 8 yeas and 0 nays. The bill is reported.
Thank you. And I will move for immediate effect for Senate Bill 969, the S1 version. Without objection, so ordered. Next up, we have House Bill 5591. Representative Iden, do you wish to speak? I have a card in from Brian Westron wishing to speak. Okay. Awesome. That works. Good afternoon.
You got it? You sure? Okay. All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, always great to be with you. Thanks for having me. Brian's going to come up with me. We're going to speak a little bit about the appraiser bill that we have in front of you as it relates to, this is very important to note on this bill that it doesn't have anything to do with a bad appraisal. So if you have an issue with the appraisal that you've been provided, that would not be your method, would not be to go to Lara in this particular case and contest the appraisal. This is purely as it relates to their licensing, and if you have a problem with the way that the appraiser has basically acted and you've deemed that they are for some reason acted negligible in this particular case. So
And this is really a uniformity bill. The Article 24, Article 25, which regulates builders and real estate salespeople and brokers, they currently have an 18-month limitations period for administrative complaints. Appraisers had no such limitations period under Article 26, and since they are a cross-section of our membership, they did request that they had similar treatment in as much as they do involve themselves with similar transactions, and the information is on the table within a span of time that is reasonable. 18 months made good sense. So this would put them all uniformly placed, and as Representative Iden said, it does not impact any action of a civil nature for negligence or breach of contract.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have any questions for either of our guests? Seeing none, I will move to report House Bill 5591 to the floor with recommendation that the bill then pass. Clerk will please call the roll.
Chairman Rocca.
Yes.
Senator Jones.
Yes.
Senator Nolenberg. Yes. Senator Kowal. Yes. Senator MacGregor. Yes. Senator Hune. Senator Warren. Yes. Senator Hertel. Yes. Senator Kniezek. Yes. Mr. Chairman, there are 8 yeas and no nays. The bill is reported.
Thank you. And I will move for immediate effect of House Bill 5591 without objection. So ordered. And next up, we have the advice and consent hearing for Brian Neill, Michigan Lottery Commissioner. Please come on up.
Good afternoon, Chairman Rocca, Vice Chairman Jones, and members of the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee. It is truly an honor and a pleasure to appear before you today as Governor Snyder's appointee for 10th Commissioner of the Michigan Lottery. And with your approval, I'd like to provide a brief summary of my background and qualifications.
Please do.
Thank you. I was born in Michigan, earned my bachelor's degree from University of Michigan Dearborn and law degree from Ohio Northern. With the exception of 3 years for law school, I've lived in Michigan my entire life. I was licensed to practice law in 2001 and was a sole practitioner until 2005 when I joined the Department of Attorney General. I worked there for about 5 years as a staff attorney, handling state criminal appeals, federal habeas corpus petitions, and various special projects. In 2010, I began working as a senior attorney in the Alcohol and Gambling Enforcement Division, providing legal counsel to the Gaming Control Board and the Michigan Lottery. In 2013, I accepted a position at Lottery as Deputy Commissioner for Compliance and Legal Affairs. That position directs the Compliance, Security, and Public Relations divisions and oversees things such as contract negotiation, contract development, performance issues, licensing, and communication pieces. It also assists with strategic planning as part of the executive team. In late 2015, I was appointed interim and later full-time administrator. The administrator serves as Lottery's chief financial officer, oversees the administration, accounting, financial gaming services, and department services divisions, and is responsible for overseeing such matters as preparation of financial statements and reports, projections, bureau-wide budgets, and procurement issues. In mid-2016, I was appointed chief deputy. The Michigan Lottery Chief Deputy serves as Chief Operating Officer and is responsible for the day-to-day management of all operations, including 6 offices and 190 full-time employees. I also continue to serve as interim administrator until mid-2017. Most recently, I was appointed commissioner last March. The role of the commissioner is overall management of the lottery, including setting policy, reviewing major vendor contracts and purchases, meeting with other directors to discuss game innovations and multi-jurisdictional games, and also working with the legislature to provide assessment of impacts of lottery-related legislation. In terms of that role, over the last 8 years, it has been an absolute privilege to serve as Lottery's counsel, administrator, and chief deputy. Each one of these positions has provided perspective on opportunities and challenges across our entire operation, and I believe uniquely qualify me for the job. Thank you very much, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. During my time in office, the revenues from the lottery have seemed to consistently grow, even during some pretty bleak economic times for the state. It's always seemed to be pretty well run. What do you, identify as the strengths and how it's been run for years, and what changes do you want to make?
We're very proud that we've set new records for 3 consecutive years, and I'm pleased to report that we're on track to set another record this year. We're projecting revenue in excess of $960 million to schools. We have had a very successful long-term growth strategy. The two things that I would attribute outside that strategy would be, one, the strengthening economy that we've seen in the state, and also the incredibly, and I can't overstate this enough, incredibly talented and dedicated staff at the lottery. They're absolutely devoted to lottery's core mission of maximizing revenue to schools.
Great. And as far as the revenue that goes to schools, we know the profits from the lottery go to schools. Question I have is what is the breakdown of profit, administrative expenses, things like that?
For fiscal year 17, we did about $3.3 billion in sales. $924 million went to schools. Again, it was an all-time record. We gave $2 billion to players in prizes, and about $250 million went out to our retailer and vendor partners across the state. Many of our retailer partners are small, independent-owned stores and businesses. The breakdown of a typical lottery dollar, for each dollar spent, about 60% is returned to players in prizes. About 28 cents is for commissions, 9 cents in terms of, I apologize, 28 cents to schools, 9 cents to vendors and retailers, and 3 cents for administrative costs.
All right, thank you. Do we have any additional questions for our guest, Senator MacGregor?
Yeah, thank you for coming in and testifying. Wondering if you could share what you think the greatest barriers moving forward is for the lottery.
I think a challenge facing really all lotteries is staying competitive in the entertainment market. One concern there would be the possibility of federal action or legislation impairing lottery's ability to sell online. I believe that it is vital for lotteries to be able to evolve with technology, to meet their customers where they want to shop, and to satisfy customer demand. We'll need to do that if we're going to stay relevant and maximize revenue for schools.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
When you say impairing your ability to sell online, if we did have online gaming, would that clarify that so that wouldn't be a problem?
I'm sorry, I don't
Well, you just stated that the federal government could step in and decide that there's no more online gaming. If, in fact, it was legalized under state statute, would that enhance the situation for you, or would that just, it wouldn't really matter?
Well, we believe the Michigan Lottery is currently selling online lawfully, but I believe, and I would have to defer to the Department of Attorney General, but I believe that if the federal government were inclined to create barriers on that under power such as the Commerce Clause or another power, the Supremacy Clause would probably impose that onto us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
We have no more business before the committee. We are done. Thank you.